What's up, everyone? I'm Shadeen, and welcome to another episode of OUTPour. On today's episode, we're going to talk about code switching in the LGBTQ community. Before we jump in around the table, we want to check out a conversation that our special correspondent, Big Daddy Rob, had out in the streets. He was speaking with the HR manager of Comcast, named Jamar Johnson, talking about how he juggles intersectionality, meaning being more than one identity at a time, and how those identities overlap to create a really unique experience. For Jamar Johnson, it was about being Black and gay in corporate America. I want to know more. Let's take a look.
When you're next to me.
So, initially you said you started as a consultant. So, what came next in your journey with the company?
Well, I think we were going through a period where we wanted to keep talent. And one of the things about contract is that you can get a lot of really good folks that come in your doors, but they also leave just as quickly. So we went through a phase where we started to identify the specific individuals that we wanted to keep in the company, and
they chose you.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be kept around.
Was your sexuality ever an issue at work? Was were you out the closet immediately, or was that something that you progressed to once you got comfortable with people?
So I wasn't comfortable with my own sexuality at that point in my life. So I didn't really get comfortable with my sexuality until I was in my mid-20s. So it wasn't something that I talked about at work. People didn't ask. I don't know that they didn't ask because they felt like they already knew, or if they didn't ask because they couldn't tell, or I don't know. I was also the youngest at the time. I was 20.
You were the baby.
Yeah, I was a kid, and working with people that were all in their late 30s, early 40s. That's not something that they cared about or even were interested in. So I think I was the environment facilitated privacy. I didn't actually come out until a colleague of mine, his wife, found me on Facebook. And it prompted sort of an interesting conversation. And at that point I came out. And I think they also felt like they were leaving me out and weren't being as inclusive as they would have liked to have been, assuming that, they knew everything about me, and they did, and I preferred it that way. But at one point I sort of just made the decision to say, hey, I think that my performance and my work speaks for itself, and I don't think that has anything to do with my sexuality. So
I like the fact that your coworkers and your boss are very supportive of you, period, not at work but outside of work as well, because just recently in the past a lot of people struggle with being Black and gay in the corporate world, men, women, and everything else. So I really love that your boss was at your wedding.
Yeah. I tell you, I being Black and gay, people look at me and you can tell that I'm Black.
They can't tell you're gay.
But they can't tell that I'm gay. I mean, you can, because we're sort of hey, sis,
okay.
Right, but at
What's
work,
up, daughter?
But when I'm at work, it's a different sort of professionalism, and I'm still one of the younger people. The people on my team are older than I am, so
the people you manage are older than you are.
So you have to sort of carry yourself a certain way, and you can't look at me when I'm at work necessarily and tell, quote unquote, that I'm gay. So it's not really even something that.
You're just a professional, well-educated Black man.
As far as they know,
When you're next to me.
I love how he really experienced that Comcast was supportive of him. But I know that's not everyone's experience. I'm wondering, have any of you felt like you had to code switch at work?
I think code switching is, innate for Black people in this country. You cannot, especially if you're Black and gay. So you have to, am I too Black? Am I too gay? You have to, juggle those two. I think the interesting thing with Jamar particularly is that he, stated that that Comcast felt some type of way that he didn't disclose that he was gay. Like, you didn't have to hide that you were gay. And that was really poignant for me, because a lot of times as Black men, we don't always feel supportive. So he didn't even realize that he was hiding something and it wasn't even necessary. You know, he was holding on to that.
Well, I think for me, in any relationship, whether it be business or formal or informal, I think you have to be a person who has adaptability, right? And black people, we are not one-dimensional.
Okay,
We
come
are
on
not
now.
one-dimensional. We are black. We are men. We are women. We are gay. You can't be just one way. That's my experience.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I feel like, just like you said, we are so many different things. So, and it's when we're introduced and when we have to live and survive in a culture that is, you know, a mainstream culture. That's,
not affirming.
You know, we're not a part of the majority. So, you know, we, like you said, we have to find a way to be able to fit in and to be able to, you know, kind of make a way.
So as we're surviving and evolving, how would someone know when it's time to code switch?
You know, it's so weird that you would say that because you just, you know, you just know. Like when I'm in more heteronormative type situations, I tend to like, you know, be a little bit more masculine. And it's just, it's not even intentional. It's just like, it's like I become a man, you know? It's weird.
Was that your man impression?
Yes, honey. Don't.
It was
don't-
hard.
I know.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to completely disagree. I'm with Antar. I think as a black gay man, an educated black gay man, I think wherever I go, I always make my presence known. And it's either you accept me or you don't.
But then also, we can also say that maybe this is why certain people don't get promotions.
I think that's fair.
You know what?
You know what?
I mean, you can't.
That's
I mean,
a good
when
point.
you say keeping it real comes at a high cost. And honey, mama likes to eat.
And so where are the spaces when we need to turn this on and off? I know
Yeah.
that we're talking about corporate America,
Yeah.
but where are the points in time at which people need to sort of change face?
So I'm thinking about, for example, one point in time, this just, you know, this just coming to me right now is interviews. So when you're out searching for jobs and you're in a job market, that's code switching at its finest. Like you literally have to turn into a different person. And we learned that early on that, you know, you have to present a certain way. You have to speak a certain way. You have to show up a certain way just to, you know, be able to have an equal footing, and you're still at a disadvantage. So I think code switching is very, very present in, you know, like when you're searching for jobs or interviewing or in a job market and those type of situations.
Well, how about the criminal justice system?
Yeah.
So
Say more.
when you are in prison and you are going for your hearing, what do your lawyers tell you to do? They tell you to suit up, put on a nice tie, a good suit, whether it's too big or too small.
Say yes,
wear a
ma'am,
suit.
no, ma'am to the job.
Okay,
because
now,
you have to code
you know,
switch.
dang well, having that suit on, that tie, well, it ain't gonna make too much of a difference for your hearing.
Well, that's true.
I mean, do you agree?
No, I agree. And I mean, that is a form of code switching. But I think like on a deeper level, when you have to constantly, and it becomes chronic, it becomes toxic after a while, you know. And it's really weird that, you know, we're talking about just the race particular, but I mean, I've been around a lot of white gay folks where now I can't be too black.
Yeah.
Now I'm too Negro. You know?
I think that's interesting. You know what that makes me think about is how code switching isn't just limited to sexual orientation. It isn't just limited to race. Even when it comes to things like gender.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about kind of like my life prior to transitioning was like a huge fucking code switch. Like just thinking about the fact that I was kind of having to be something that I was not, or having to live a life that I did not feel was authentic to me in order to survive. So I felt that was, you know, code switching.
And so how do we know the difference between when we're doing what we need to fit in or be accepted, and when we're being inauthentic?
That's a good question.
For me, I think it's a skill. And it's a gift that a lot of people do not have. It's a skill and it's a gift.
So it's a
When
gift.
to actually do it, when to not do it. When you're around your peers, the people who I look like Antar, he looks like me, Shadeen, but then we have the other people who don't look like us. When is the appropriate moment? I think there's never an appropriate moment. It's a skill and a gift at the same time.
And it's fascinating to me how necessary this still is, given that our entire globe is increasing in diversity. When we look at this country,
Absolutely.
that there is so much more diversity around race, around genders, right, beyond the binary, around, you know, people who are being represented at different levels. I don't think it's as far as we'd like it to go, but I'm wondering, do we want this to be a skill that we are all learning and aspiring to, or do we hope that maybe there might be a time beyond the need to code switch?
So for me, I think that I would really love to see a day when we don't have to code switch, just because I think that people should just be able to be, you know, as someone who just, you know, I feel like human beings are humans, you know, and they should be able to just exist as they are without having to live up to other people's expectations of who they should be, who they think they are, whether that's your parents, whether that's people from a race that you don't fit into, or whether that's people who maybe are not the same gender or sexual orientation, whatever the case may be. Other people, you know, you should just be allowed to be who you are without having to, you know, fear how you may be perceived by the next person based off of that.
But where are you living at, Aaron? Where do you live at? What country do you live in?
Baby.
You live in the United States of America under the great Trump, okay? So you talk about I wish. I'm sorry, you know, to say this, but my opinion, and this is Tony's opinion only, we're never going to get to a point where it just is. You just be. Whether it's white America, black America, okay, whether it's blue collar, white collar. Sometimes it is what it is.
Like my whole journey from my own education as an educated trans woman with a master's degree, we know that that's not something that's super common, and that is not something that would have been as easily obtained had I made the decision to transition earlier in life. So I made a conscious decision to. And code switching was that's what it was. It was you are going to be able to survive by being able to focus on your education and by doing this, and it was the only way. I saw that as the only way. As self-destructive as that was, to have to have went through 6 years of schooling straight through, you know, it's like you want to be able to be yourself. Like you don't want to have to not be something, but I felt that necessary for me to be successful. For me, I don't know. I feel like one way to be able to kind of like combat or to kind of like challenge the whole code switching thing is to just kind of just being like Kiana, what you said, it's just being unapologetically who you are. Just being unapologetic about who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and not only that, but being visible with it.
And
so
what
with
cost?
me, visibility is important.
What cost?
And you have to determine that for yourself. So as an individual, you have to determine what that looks like. But I think that those are some things that are really important, you know, in regards to especially trying to combat or to be able to challenge the notion of having to or being forced to code switch.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So authenticity is really important to you.
I think that's really important for other people, especially to see examples. For me, it was always important to see other examples, other role models, because for me, that helped me to see the way that I can possibly do this too. If I see other people who look like me or maybe came from somewhere that I came from, that gives me a little bit of hope. That lets me know that it is a possibility and you just have to figure out how to make it happen.
I'm going to take it a little bit further. Authenticity is important if you want to change the lens and you want to change the dynamics of everything that's currently happening. Everything that's currently happening, it's important that you be your true, authentic self.
Live in your truth. Live
Live
in
in
your truth.
your truth.
Live in your
Walking
truth.
in your light.
But what I will say
Come on,
about
Vice President.
millennials and that walking in your light is I always say the first title of my book will be called When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. For example, Monique. She kept it real.
Oh, yeah.
She kept it real.
I remember that.
She kept it real.
I remember that.
And that's when keeping it real went really wrong. And
That's why I said, and what
no,
cost?
anyway, but I mean, what she talked about
And
when
what
she did
cost?
Precious, she went against the Hollywood elite. And I'm not saying what she did was wrong. It wasn't, but when she kept it real, Sister Girl kept it real. But that's when keeping it real went really wrong. She wasn't in a position of power to do that. Oprah was in the position of power to do that.
Some people never get the same access to power, right?
That's true.
Right, that Monique is a woman of color, right? Not the stereotypical, celebrity body type, right? People get very typecast. And Comedia is not, does not have the same weight in the industry. Do you disagree with that?
No, I disagree with that.
Go ahead.
I think Monique has had a lot of opportunities to get where she needed to be, or where she wanted to be. She was her own enemy. Even when she went on, what is it, The View with the Talk with Oprah? Which one is Whoopi on? The View.
Yeah.
So Whoopi was like, listen, you played your cards all wrong.
That's
If
money.
you had did this, you would have been there. So I think she had opportunities, upon many more opportunities.
Just to add what you're saying, I feel like especially when you're in Hollywood, if this is your lane, if this is your thing, exactly. That's what I was just gonna say. You know what the unwritten rules are. You know what you have to do. prior to signing up and prior to doing
Code
it.
switching.
So if you decide not to, then like you said, at what cost?
That's it for this week's show. As always, we would like to thank you for the outpour of love and support.
See you next week.